Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I hope everyone's coping with the recent restrictions in Sydney and across the nation. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are observing this event today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Varnier, and I'm the Startup Community and Partnerships Manager for X15. If you've got any questions about how you might engage with X15, either as a startup or as an industry participant, please feel free to reach out to myself. We'll drop my LinkedIn profile in the chat. Feel free to connect. I'd like to kick off today by handing over to Alex Scandara from Stone and Chalk. Alex is going to talk about the great work that Stone and Chalk does and why they decided to partner with X15. Over to you, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Zach. And good morning, everyone. And wherever you are from across the country, pay our respects to your elders, past and present, wherever you may be as well. So why am I speaking to you? Well, before coming back to Australia, I was the founder of the Barclays Rise program, which is working with startups and scale-ups for the Barclays Group around 5 countries now, and founded the Barclays and Techstars Accelerator in the UK and the US. And in coming back to Australia, founded Stone and Chalk and have been a long-term angel and investor in startups as well as mentor too. So really understand the journey that you guys are on and really praise every single one of you for embarking on what is such a courageous and exciting venture that you each have. In terms of Stone and Chalk was founded in 2015 in Sydney with a core focus in fintech. And at the time we founded Stone and Chalk, there was probably about 100 startups that we were able to identify across the country that were in the fintech space, and was really pleased to see that by the end of about 2018, there were well over 800 fintech startups roaring across the country, and some of those had already listed. So in Stone and Chalk, we expanded from fintech to all areas of emerging tech in the end of 2019, particularly as we opened then across Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide. And so now Stone and Chalk is really focused around 2 key things: supporting founders and businesses from across all areas of emerging technology, with a particular focus on companies that are Australian owned and operated. So we're really zeroing in on helping to build domestic capability and then helping Australian founders go and export, both by scaling nationally here and then opening up into other markets. In earlier this year, we were also successfully merging with AusCyber, which is Australia's cybersecurity growth centre, as part of an extension with the federal government. And AusCyber has played a key role in helping, in many respects, like Stone and Chalk has, in growing the cybersecurity ecosystem here in Australia. And so collectively, we'll be able to bring our capabilities in terms of national reach, relationships, and importantly, what we've curated as an impact network, which brings together mentors, investors, government and enterprise customers, and a whole range of other actors, all designed to fundamentally help you with getting access to customers, capital, talent, expertise, and community. Now, speaking of customers, we're really pleased to be working together with CBA and X15 Ventures in helping them with this year's program. It's shaping up to be a really exciting topic around the problems faced by retail, and it couldn't be any more acute, I think, than fundamentally any other sector other than potentially the airlines, on quite an acute moment in time so far as how COVID and other economic factors are affecting their business model. So collectively, we're really excited to be hearing about and seeing the solutions that you guys put forward. And I certainly look forward to seeing what great quality propositions, products and services you guys bring to the table. Now, I want to encourage you to remember also that you need to be prepared and you need to be professional. So make sure that you put your best foot forward in terms of how you approach the program and how you approach this opportunity. And you wouldn't be a true entrepreneur if you didn't make the most of every single interaction and every learning experience that a program and an engagement like this can offer, regardless of how long you go along the journey. So over to you guys. It's exciting times, and it's great to have an opportunity like this to potentially get a foot in the door with Australia's biggest bank. So back to you guys at X15.
Thanks, Alex. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the Stone and Chalk team that helped us turn this around from an in-person event to virtual in 2 or 3 days. So I appreciate that. I wanted to hand over now to Toby Norton-Smith, Managing Director of X15. He's going to discuss what X15 is and what we've been up to over the past 12 months. Over to you, Toby.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining this morning. I'm pretty dismayed to see Zach, who is based in Brisbane, wearing a T-shirt, and I've quickly run off and grabbed an extra jumper here in Sydney. But thank you, everyone, for joining us at this time. I wish we were together in person, and I think we all hold out hope that by the time we get around to the real business of Xccelerate, and probably the most exciting part for me, which is the sort of final pitch events for the 3 finalists, that we are in person. So look, I'm sure you're all here hopefully to hear about Xccelerate. I thought it would be helpful for me to tell you a little bit more about X15 itself, the venture scaler vehicle that we launched about 18 months ago. In fact, the date is sort of etched in my memory because it was February of 2020, which of course was just before sort of COVID got very, very serious and we just got out the door in time. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about that, how we've supported startups like you so far in our journey. And then we're going to transition into a fireside chat with some of the ventures we already work with. So maybe in telling you a bit about X15, I'll start with the name itself. We're X15 for 2 reasons. The official reason is that the X stands for the exploration inherent in what we're about as a venture scaler, and the 15 is a reference to the 15 million CommBank customers. That's the sort of advantage that we try to create through X15 by allowing ventures to plug into that channel. But there's actually an origin story, or a different story behind why we're called X15. And it's because of, I think we're going to pull up an image, or maybe we're not. Oh, here we go. There you go. It's because of that. That is the X15 rocket-propelled test aircraft. It helped then pilots, they weren't astronauts then, like Neil Armstrong, actually first reach the edge of space and earn their astronaut's wings. And as I'm sure you can see, like many startups like you, we probably spent far too much time and energy on finding a name. And actually, after a bit of a strikeout with a branding agency and maybe with too many engineers in the room, we quickly started gravitating around space names. And this one made a lot of sense to us, but particularly because of this little known fact about it, which was that the rocket itself, the X15, couldn't do what it could do without the help of a really big brother. And Morgan, I think we got another image there. And so actually what happened was the X15 was sort of hauled up halfway to the edge of space by, in this case, a B-52 bomber before it ignited its rockets and sort of set off on its mission. And, we thought that really neatly captured the intent of what we're about as a venture scaler, which is that we need to have, agility, speed to support ventures to really operate in the true startup mode that generates success. But it's explicitly designed, X15, that your venture gets lift, that you get lift and early support, far more than just funding from CommBank. And so that's a little bit of a backstory on why we're called X15. As I mentioned, we launched in February of last year. We shared then an ambition to launch and scale at least 25 ventures and earn, a really healthy commercial return over the first 5 years. We discussed that the model we'd adopt, we thought was a little bit different, this venture scaler model. So it's not a pure play corporate venture capital model. It's also not an incubator model. So we're really focused on providing, hands-on support to ventures, be they ventures that we build, ones that we acquire, or one that we invest in. In all cases, we expect to play an active role in supporting those ventures. And it's early days. We're only 18 months into our journey ourselves, but and it's too early to sort of measure returns, but we think we're on track with that model. And it's because we think we're starting to learn something a little bit special about how we can scale ventures through some of the technology integrations we've built with CommBank. I'll just give you an example of that. Home-In is Morgan, let's just jump to the next slide. Home-In here, that is a business that we actually launched when X15 went live last February. So it was one of the ventures that we actually built ourselves. And what's really exciting about it, and you can actually see from that screenshot of Home-In, that a lot of the data it captures and the customers it captures come through CommBank. And you can see there from the graph on the right-hand side, maybe the axes have been exaggerated a little bit for dramatic impact, but the facts are the facts. We'd been running that business in pilot mode for a while. And then I think it was around about October, November last year, we sort of switched on an integration we built with CommBank, so that customers from CommBank, when they applied for a mortgage, were automatically introduced to this service through the CommBank app. And you can really see the result and the outcome of that. Opening up an acquisition channel for a venture to 8 million digitally active customers is a huge opportunity. I also won't walk past, that it's a huge responsibility. The 9 months that preceded that involved, it wasn't just a magic switch. It involved like really sober thinking. In some ways, I think what's interesting about Xccelerate and how we'll push you as a startup is we want to sort of push to the left some of the thinking around security operations, some of the thinking about being regulatory ready and sound, depending on what environment you operate in and what the sort of regulatory and legal context is. For your venture to scale, for it to scale through enterprise partners, we want to drag some of those questions that you'll need to answer through earlier. And certainly that's what we did with the Home-In team to be able to scale them. So enough about that. For our model to be successful, we've learned a lot in the last 18 months. One of the things that we learned is that while we started with ventures that we built ourselves, and we did that very intentionally. We wanted to sort of effectively test the plumbing between X15 and CBA. We've quickly learned that if we want to have the impact we think we can have, acquisitions and minority investments are going to be a really important part of our mix. We've done some of those already. Our first acquisition was a business called Doshi. It's a modern cloud platform and marketplace which effectively plugs together all of the applications that a modern hospitality venue often wants to use, including sort of home delivery apps, through to integrates them all into the POS. And that drives sort of outrageous efficiencies for hospitality venues and really cool customer experiences for anyone who's sort of walked into a venue, for example, that has lots of order it home delivery apps that they offer, and you'll see this sort of cluster of different tablets and devices on the pass in a restaurant. That all disappears. That's a business that we acquired last December. It's scaling really, really rapidly since we've acquired them. And so the learning for us there is, that's a business that was built by a very seasoned entrepreneur, Sean O'Mara. It had, been around for 4 or 5 years. The impact that we can have for those 15 million customers I referenced earlier is much, much greater when, a venture has progressed that far. The next thing we learned, of course, is that minority investments are really, really important. It allows us to tap into the sorts of, innovations and opportunities that people like you are going to be bringing through. We've that's one of the reasons we set up Xccelerate. We're going to hear shortly from the Own Home crew, who were the winners of the last Xccelerate we ran in the home buying space, and they received funding of $150,000 from X15 to help them sort of first build out their product. We invested over $1 million in Payable through a minority stake that we've taken. That actually started out as a safe note, similar to what's on offer for this Xccelerate program, and you'll hear shortly from Elliot about how that business has evolved. Other activity, we're really proud of our participation and support for the StartMate fellowship program to support women in tech. That program finished shortly. I don't think I'm allowed to reveal names, but actually we're really thrilled that the first of those participants in that program we've actually hired. One of the participants in that program we've now hired at X15. And of course Stone and Chalk, they're the standout body and really sort of entrepreneur engagement platform in Australia. We understand, and so we're absolutely thrilled to be working with them on this. So that's a little bit about sort of how, I think overall, I mentioned learnings. Learnings for us is that we need the talent, the energy, the opportunity, and the ideas that people like you bring, and we'd love to work with you to bring some of your ideas through to market, or at least, one idea through to market as the winner of Xccelerate. So with that in mind, I think we might transition over to the good old fireside chat, and I'm really, really pleased. I think I'm going to be welcoming Elliot Donovan, the founder of Payable, and James Bowe, one of the co-founders of Own Home. That doesn't look like either of them. That looks like Zach. There we go.
All right, Toby, if you'd like to just go into, if we can pull up James and Elliot, and we'll get into some questions. Hey, guys. Over to you, Toby.
Morning, guys. Thanks for joining us. Let's launch straight into it. James, can you tell us a bit about your business, Own Home?
Yeah, thanks, Toby. So Own Home is forging a new path to home ownership. Our mission is turning renters into homeowners, and we deliver on that by bringing the rent-to-buy model to Australia. And what this means is our customers build purchase credits towards their dream home while they're living in it, with the option to buy that home from Own Home at a pre-agreed price. So Own Home protects young Australians from a runaway property market. Last year, 60% of first home buyers had direct help from the bank of mum and dad, a leg up that's obviously not available to all. And all the while that young Australians without access to this financial support are saving and slaving, as one of our customers referred to it, the goalposts are shifting. For instance, last year, while the Sydney median house price jumped $150,000, that means that the average deposit also jumped $30,000. So that's $30,000 of savings needed to just avoid going backwards in your home buying journey. And that's why we're so excited to launch Own Home and deliver a certain path to home ownership for young Australians.
Thanks, James. And Elliot, a little bit about Payable, please.
Sure, mate. Thanks for having me. So Payable solves the problem that every year 75 million regular bills aren't paid on time. When you think of these bills, every time there's a missed payment, it creates stress and a cost for the consumer, but also creates a cost to the biller. They need to spend money and time following up that missed payment. So we built Payable as the better way to fix failed and late payments before they happen. So as a consumer, you simply scan the QR code on your bill to create the bill payment. But if you ever need more time or a helping hand to pay, you can activate a payment extension or fee-free installment plan directly in the Payable app after you've scanned that QR code. You can do all that without needing to contact your biller. And businesses offer Payable as a payment method because we lower that contact center cost and that cost of payment repairs. We also improve the customer experience.
Elliot, we'll stick with you. You're a seasoned entrepreneur. This is not your first rodeo, and you're obviously sort of quite well connected in the startup community. Based on that, I'm sort of really keen to hear your version of why you ended up taking an investment from X15 and partnering with us.
You're very kind, Toby. Look, we really wanted a partner that could bring us more than money. We didn't want a financier. we wanted someone that could help us scale. So Paypal's a business that works really, really well at scale. And so we wanted help to get there. So a partner that could accelerate go-to-market, a partner that could help us with marketing, and really a partner that could put us in front of the businesses and the billers that have a large amount of failed payments so that we could introduce Paypal to them and get them to use our solution.
And maybe just sort of double clicking to get really specific, clearly our work with you to date hasn't done the home in plugin, which we showed earlier. What, if any, benefit have we driven for your business, like very specifically so far?
Very specifically, X15 brought us through to the CommBank transactional bank, and that bank has brought us in front of customers and customers that we now have projects with using Paypal. So very, very clear outcome. We're working rapidly now with those customers towards launch. But I don't think we would have got in front of those customers without X15 nurturing us, working on us with those relationships, and then allowing us to access the bankers who know how to get in front of those teams. So that was when I first sat down with the X15 team, my dream was for this to be a way we could get in front of customers, and it's happened.
And we certainly haven't helped you out with merch. I like the scrappy startup story that for those that can see Elliot on the screen and his lovely Payable t-shirt, that's actually just old t-shirts and clothing of his that he takes down to the mall and gets printed up with the Payable logo, which is a mindset and attitude that we encourage across all ventures. James, you were the most recent winner of Xccelerate along with Tim, your co-founder. Could you tell us about your experience in Xccelerate and sort of where you were at in your journey when you were thinking about Own Home, and sort of how Xccelerate hopefully accelerated that journey?
Yeah, sure, Toby. So we were first drawn to Xccelerate because we were conscious that home ownership is one of the most important financial decisions that young Australians will make over the course of their lives. And therefore, we were eager to partner with Australia's most trusted brand in home buying, CBA. And so ultimately, Own Home is a front runner to a bank mortgage, and we want to partner with banks on making that off-ramp from Own Home to full ownership as smooth as possible. And so partnering with X15 has been fantastic in accelerating our access to decision makers within CBA to build our understanding of what that off-ramp looks like for our customers. And so I think that's one of the other benefits beyond sort of the 15 million customers that Toby and the team have made great reference to today. And I think that sort of win-win partnering is what great accelerators are all about.
Apologies, there may be a bit of background noise. I think the council have decided to mow the lawns outside our house right now. James, you referenced mortgages and banks. So sort of, I think it's an interesting point to talk about. Clearly, your aspiration is to work with lots of banks. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your progress from Xccelerate forward, sort of how we've been involved, but also, more broadly, your vision for Own Home.
Yeah, thanks, Toby. So it's certainly been a phenomenal few months since Xccelerate2020. So we've gone from a team that was just Tim and I in March of this year to now sort of a team of 5 absolute stars. And we're now on the cusp of getting our first customers into their own home with Own Home. And also since Xccelerate, the interest from overseas venture funds has been phenomenal. And I think the knowledge that a bank like CBA is really interested in the space has given them great confidence. And also most recently, support from the New South Wales government, which has been fantastic. So so just to reiterate, I think, Toby, it's X15 have been sort of phenomenal stewards in making introductions to the right folks within the bank. And as many VCs say, eventually all businesses are fintech. And so it's hard to ignore the rewards that come from partnering with Australia's fintech giant in CBA, and X15 are phenomenal partners with that sort of big brother that Toby referenced.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point I wanted to draw out for many people here is we're conscious that many ventures, for them to be successful, it's a tremendous starting point to partner with X15 and CVA, but candidly, it's not enough. You look at Elliot's business model, Payable, for it to be successful, really needs to become a utility. Own Home clearly wants to serve the entire market of potential customers, and I think it's a point to emphasize, we're very comfortable with that. The important thing, though, is that we think we can help accelerate a venture by sort of starting with CommBank. In the case of some ventures, like very candidly, like a home in, there's so much value that they've still got to tap into through that channel, that I think that's what they're focusing on at the moment. But it's certainly what I wanted to draw at, with James is, it doesn't mean that if you choose partnering with X15 that you're sort of limiting yourself only to a sort of CBA ecosystem. We just think we're giving you a good advantage in that particular ecosystem. In terms of capital as well, same situation. I think, some of you would be aware that actually X15 has some partnerships with Square Peg Capital locally in Australia, and then in the US with an AI specific venture fund called Zeta AI, actually founded or co-founded by an Aussie who lives over there. Again, we recognize that they may be really valuable sources of capital for your business down the track, or just introducers to other sources of capital. So I think, our mindset, probably something that we've learned over the 18 months, is very much that, we're a part of the story of how we can help a venture, but we're not sufficient. So Elliot, James, thanks for your time. Thank you for your, candidly, for your faith. Both of you joined us earlier in our journey, and we are still learning every single day on how we can, be best and most useful to startups. So thank you, not just for the leap of faith, but actually you've given us learnings and been very candid with your sort of feedback through the journey. So thanks for joining us, and the best of luck in the next period for your ventures.
Thanks, Toby.
And I think, Zach, we're going to jump over to Ish, who's, by way of introduction, Ish Ko is the head of our portfolio in X15. That gives her the responsibility for, building out the pipeline of new ventures that we're either building, acquiring, or investing in, including sponsoring Xccelerate as one of the really valuable sources of potential inbound opportunities. So I might hand over to you, Ish, because I know you are a passionate believer in the theme of this Xccelerate. Over to you, and good morning.
Thanks, Toby, and welcome everyone. Thanks for coming this morning. Really excited to talk to you a little bit more about the Xccelerate program, what it is, and give you a little bit more background on the theme and what we're looking for. So Xccelerate21 is a community program, and we're looking for experienced and early stage founders, so founders at pre-seed or seed stage, to connect with the X15 team and pitch for funding. The winning team is going to be offered a $150,000 investment from X15 in the form of a standardized safe note, and we'll also provide you with support and capital to help you scale your business. And we really think this is an important way for X15 to contribute back to the Australian startup ecosystem. So why might you want to get involved? So benefits of the program, in addition to the capital, as Toby mentioned, we really want to go beyond capital. So accessing to mentors, the startups and the ventures that are applying to us, we will determine who are the best connections to make through to the bank, and you'll have access to not only people from X15 Ventures who provide expertise across all different aspects that are relevant to setting up a venture, such as tech, talent, marketing, people who've worked in startups before, but also CommBank execs who have really deep expertise, not only in their subject matter, but also in what it takes to partner with the bank and what a bank will be looking for. So on to the challenge itself. So Retail Reimagined is the theme for this year. Retail is and e-com in particular are really interesting to the bank right now because we've really seen an acceleration in innovation since the pandemic, and we really only see that increasing with sort of the merging of traditionally disparate markets such as shopping, social media, financial services, marketing, all kind of melding, and the way that customers shop, pay and reward is really being disrupted at the moment. So we're looking for startups who are looking to reimagine how people shop firstly. So how startups might be starting, helping businesses to transition to online or marketplace models, how people pay. So startups that are looking to support merchants with challenges around how they might be receiving payments and cash flow, and then rewards, so how customers might be connected with businesses, and those businesses can reward those customers for long-lasting relationships. So we think that this is an area that CBA and X15 can really add some unique value into, because we have a base of customers, retail customers, for whom shopping is a really relevant everyday activity, and we acknowledge as a bank that going forward we need to think much broader than a transactional banking relationship and think about how to enrich that value proposition. But we also have a very large base of merchant customers who are really looking for again, a bank to offer more than just banking and financing, and they're actually looking for help on how to run their business more efficiently and more effectively. So we think we're in that unique position in having both sides of that equation, and to be able to scale a solution that might be able to connect those two. We'll talk a little bit more about the process later on, but that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Ish. Now, what we'd like to do is we're just going to change gears slightly, and we've got 3 speakers coming up to talk about retail in different contexts, retail from a banking perspective and retail from a customer perspective. I'd like to hand over now to Rochelle Eldridge, General Manager of Shopping at CommBank. She's going to talk about a few things that might be of interest to the audience. So over to you, Rochelle.
Thank you so much, Zach, and thanks everyone for having me. So I'm Rochelle from CBA's shopping division. You may not know that CBA has a division focused on bringing the best shopping experience and insights to customers. Well, it does, and it's actually investing in it, as you've heard from Yish today. So CBA has, as you probably know, 7.5 million digitally active customers and an enviable market share, particularly in the younger age groups. So the background to our focus on shopping is if we can find value for our consumer customers by connecting them to great deals our merchants offer, then everyone wins. Let's just look at a couple of examples of where we're doing that at the moment. So let's look at what we've done with CommBank Rewards. We sourced cashback offers for our customers from big brands such as Coles, JB Hi-Fi, Menulog, Chemist Warehouse, Kogan, to get a reward such as $20 off at spend $20 at Menulog and get $10 back. We also work with many small and medium-sized Australian businesses such as Brook Farm. You may be familiar with their delicious mueslis. We help these businesses connect to millions of our digitally active customers, and in return, hopefully our customers get a good deal. You might have seen recently we announced an investment in Little Birdie, and we're very excited about this strategic partnership, which will connect many of our retail customers and business customers and give them access to exclusive deals that are personalized based on their spending habits using our AI-driven customer engagement engine. Little Birdie is launching soon, and it's going to be great for CBA to be working closely with companies such as Little Birdie as they develop and help them grow. And I raised this example of Little Birdie's partnership with CBA as it highlights a number of things. Firstly, the opportunity for retail startups in Australia is substantial, hence our Xccelerate focus this time. Secondly, working in conjunction with a corporate, while different to the standard startup model, has a number of benefits, as you heard from Elliot from Payables and James from Own Home just then. And lastly, oftentimes a partnership model between a corporate and a startup results in a better overall experience for the end customer. I'm really excited to see, like CBA, that X15 is focused on the future of retail shopping experience for our customers, with Xccelerate supporting early stage founders with funding, subject matter expertise, and mentorship. I personally can't wait to hear about the winner of the Xccelerate program, and would encourage any founders that are thinking of applying to reach out to the X15 team to discuss any questions they might have.
Thanks for that, Rochelle. I appreciate that endorsement for the program. We're going to now hand over to Amaya Robinson, Executive Manager of E-commerce Product Management for CBA. Amaya is going to be using a somewhat personal case study as to the state of retail at the moment in 2021 and potentially beyond. Amaya, I'll hand over to yourself. Can't wait for this one.
Thanks, Zach. Morning, everyone. So I'm going to introduce you to my daughter. She's 12 years old, and her name is Jade Georgia Robinson. About to go to high school and loves spending time on Pinterest and TikTok. And unfortunately, these platforms introduce her to new products such as these sneakers that she wanted to buy. Now, these sneakers cost $350 US. They are Nike Air Jordan. They're new to market. And when she told me how much they were, let me just say I had a heart attack. $350 US for a pair of sneakers for a 12-year-old. So I said to her, listen, go see if you can find them cheaper. If you can find them for $250, I'll buy them for you. So off she went, searching through her on her phone, using Pinterest and TikTok to search for these shoes at $250. She even used Google to try to find them. Blew me away, came back a few hours later. Here are my shoes, Mum, $250 I found them. I'm like, where did you find these shoes for $250? A platform called Goat. It's not an animal, it's a marketplace in the US that sells high-end fashion to, I guess, kids my age. So I had to commit and fulfill my promise. So they did have a delivery charge. They were going to charge $50 US to deliver, and you'd be able to get them in 4 weeks. Or if you joined and signed up to their rewards program, you could have them delivered for $40 in 2 weeks. So off we went. We logged in and registered into Goat and paid the $40, well, $290, and got the shoes in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, Jade is a cash-only customer. She gets money for her birthdays and special occasions, all in cash. So we had to trade cash for my PayPal account so she could complete the purchase. But when I sat back and thought about that whole experience, other than the fact that I think I'm going to be broke in a few years' time, the way that my daughter spends and her tastes in fashion, was this child who was born with an iPad in her hand, at 3 months old, had an iPad, how she's learnt to navigate an ecosystem, digital ecosystems, and at 12 years old was very much influenced on these ecosystems. She was able to inform herself in terms of price, delivery charges, even currencies, came to me with the options, and then signed up to a rewards program and understood that by signing up, she was able to get benefits with that platform. And that's just a 12-year-old's experience in buying sneakers. So it's amazing how the youth and shopping is going to influence the way they shop and therefore the kinds of investments we'll need to make to meet their needs. So where I see the opportunities for banks and startups is that, you know, how do we digitally enable a 12-year-old who wants to shop? How do banks as a collective who basically have a majority in-store market share, help them build a model where they can support their merchant community to move into unified commerce? In other words, where the shift is that consumers would typically have gone to the shops and purchased things, and now it's shifting dramatically, in particular because of COVID, the acceleration of merchants needing to be where the customer is. So instead of the customer going to the merchant is coming to the customer. And so there's a massive shift in the way people buy. And then the last point is, you know, how do we use data to help merchants really target the right customers? You know, so these search engines are using data to know that Jade would want these shoes. So how can we use data to help influence that shopping experience? So that's my little insight into shopping with a 12-year-old. I hope CBA gives me a pay rise so I can fund her increased spend habits as she moves into high school. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Amaya. As a parent of a younger child, it scares me to hear these kinds of things. We're now going to move to John Batistich, Non-Executive Director of Zipco, among others. While we transition over to John's screen, we'll just have a placeholder in case any of the audience just wonders what's happening. So we'll make that transition now. And if I can just get a thumbs up once John is ready to go, we'll hand over to John to talk about the future of e-commerce and the 8 shifts shaping the future of retail. I suggest to all the startups on the call today, take note of these observations, and if you can address these in your application, that would be quite helpful. I'll pause there. John, are we ready to go?
I am. So good morning all. My name's John Batistich, as Zach said. I've worked in retail and payments and consumer experiences and really excited to be part of this very important initiative supported by CommBank's X15, Xccelerate in partnership with Stone & Chalk, because we do need in Australia a healthy retail tech ecosystem, which has been missing for many years. So let's talk about the context for retail, the addressable market. $362 billion worth of retail in the last 12 months. It grew, fueled by $80 billion worth of JobKeeper, $36 billion worth of super that 2.5 million Australians accessed early. And we also had $60 million that we would have spent, $60 billion would we spent overseas on 11 million visits staying in Australia on retail. As a result, retail grew at its highest level in a generation at 9.5%. And this chart just in one outlines the structure, the players, the relative growth stages of these critical segments, whether it be food, retail, supermarkets and liquor, department stores, fashion, household, cafe, restaurants and takeaway. And what we saw last year is all categories growing very strongly, with the exception of really that entertainment, hospitality, cafe and restaurant categories. So with that said, let's get moving into the 8 shifts. Now, I will note that this presentation is available to you all, and I will be sharing a link at the end. We're going to talk about briefly changes in consumer behavior, why it's important for retailers to focus on retaining their best customers, the collapsing funnel, how e-commerce retail is becoming more social, more group, and certainly more experiential. The rise of the meta marketplaces, lightning fulfillment, invisible payments, and programmatic personalization. So let's get started. What we know is Australian e-commerce has grown to $47 billion over the last 12 months of that 362 billion for total retail. We know that it's grown at anywhere between 40 and 45% in March and April, just slowly softening as we are ultimately overlapping a period of enormous growth this time last year when some stores in some states were closed. And that accounts for just on 13% of total retail is now e-commerce. Now, compared to China, which sees their e-commerce almost at 44%, UK at almost 30%, and the US at over 21%, you can see a huge opportunity for exponential growth in Australia. And many of the retail tech will see e-commerce as a really critical opportunity for growth. When we look at some of the categories, we see takeaway food, not surprisingly, up 69%, fashion up 25%. And as a share of their total business, takeaway now for the last 12 months was around 10% was online, and for fashion around 24%. We saw our grocery double with Woolworths and Coles seeing numbers like almost 8% and almost 6% of their total business now delivered to the home. And when we look at what we expect to change, we expect this not to be cyclical, but certainly to be structural. People are expecting to shop more online, exercise at home, use mobile payment services, video calling as we are, and conferencing, and use more hybrid working from home. Let's talk about now retaining our best customers. We do this because acquisition costs are rising, targeting will become more difficult, so retaining your most valuable customers has never been more important. And why? We saw massive increases in penetration over the last 12 months. Of the more than 8.5 million households in Australia, 1.4 million purchased online for the very first time. We also, for those purchasing, saw higher levels of frequency. So when we see our changes in media, clearly we've seen huge changes between paid search and social. We saw increases in our cost per click and cost per acquisition on many of our online channels. So as a result, retailers need to really understand who are their best customers in the context of all of this new penetration, map their journey. As we saw for Xccelerate's, one of their critical principles is how do we reward our best customers? How do we earn their loyalty? How do we explore reoccurring revenue models? And how do we understand the lifetime value of our customers? The third theme is around collapsing funnels. When we started in retail many years ago, these were some of the basic stages. And these are not designed to be linear. Obviously, there will be feedback loops through these, but discovery. Australians have been spending more time on discovery. We heard around Jade in that story, spent a lot of time in that search and find stage when she really wanted those Nike Jordans. We know that our experience in search has become faster, less time, with more predictive search, more personalization, more marketplaces. Buying and paying is becoming faster, more seamless, cardless, and more invisible. The acquiring stage is being decoupled from payments, and we're expecting that to be fast, free, branded, and sustainable. Our use and share moments are critical. This is where we create conversion and ultimately loyalty. And we also solve big problems, service issues. We return. And then importantly, this relationship stage, building a direct, personalized, predicted relationship based upon my intent, my location, or my purchase behavior. So retailers need to improve their SEO through site structure, compelling content, domain authority, localization, and then having, as many of you on this call will identify, an ability to measure, test, and iterate. We also need to make steps to improve site speed, to improve the performance through platform, structure, content, and features. We also know that there are big problems to solve in Australian e-commerce. The average cart abandonment rate runs at 69%. That means that, almost 3/4 of the customers coming to your site are browsing, showing some intent, and then leaving without purchasing. So reducing cart shock, removing barriers, building trust, reducing complexity, providing the key payment options and earlier are some of the evidence-based opportunities for startups and retailers to work through to improve their cart abandonment rate. One of the critical moments of truth in e-commerce is the product details page. And Baymard Institute out of Europe does a lot of evidence-based science. And we know that having beautiful images, at least one of them in scale, being able to purchase temporarily out of stock, have free shipping, rating distribution summaries, site-authored frequently asked questions, and community-driven Q&As, alternative products, supplementary products, and having the right payment options at those right moments. But here's what's interesting. 82% of sites don't deliver on these 8 critical requirements. Let's look at the product experience building out of that. How do we improve the product sort filters, product descriptions, product images, cross-sell listings, and the interaction design are all the elements that help us collapse funnels. Conversion. Can you believe that in a physical store, we can have anywhere between, my research, 8 and 32% of customers who come into a store buy? Whilst e-commerce, the averages in our market run around 3%. 97% of people are leaving your site without buying. What we know from evidence is that understanding the intention of the visit, are we a discovery? Are we navigating? Or are we purchasing? How do we create beautiful, intuitive design? Brilliant that drive high conversion. We also know that average order value is another critical driver in the funnel for many retailers. And organic and email traffic sources and upsell and cross-sell strategies drive higher average order value. So understanding traffic, iterating on design, upsell, cross-sell and bundling, payment pages, and having those relationships drive higher average order value. In the past, the store was the area of entertainment, of experience, of local, of personal service. It was sensory. And in the past, driven by Amazon, it was the limitless store. It was about the transaction, convenience, global reach, as you heard from Jade's experience going to a US site. But it was I know what I want, I'm going to get it on Amazon or a marketplace. Well, new e-commerce creates some of the value of the store, that social experiential, and brings it into the e-commerce experience. And we're seeing digital catalogs, social marketplaces, very deep influences, live shopping, AR product, augmented reality product visualization, and shopping tags are one of the most powerful discovery channels known to retail, Instagram. So the point of this is I'm discovering, I'm just passing time, I'm engaging with content, but all of a sudden I now have the opportunity to buy in that responsive moment. And we're seeing China show us the way through Shein and Pinduoduo that are allowing group buying, bulk buys, live events, and a real community social coming to life around e-commerce. The fifth big shift is the rise of the meta marketplace. What we know is the marketplace versus the retailer's proprietary site is growing, and it's growing faster. 62% of the marketplaces account for total global e-commerce. And there is a real concentration with the big Chinese, Alibaba, JD.com, and obviously Amazon and eBay. But we know the retailers have concerns about these marketplaces. they cut revenue, they have inconsistent behaviors, they own the customer often, and they effectively become an order and fulfillment player rather than a customer engagement. And we know that Amazon have built 60% of their retail business is now third party. So for retailers, the marketplace has a huge opportunity for driving reach and driving access to new customers and new markets, but we need to make clear choices. If we do play, how do we automate? How do we optimize our product pages on those sites? But importantly, how do we preserve a direct relationship with our customers and differentiate our proprietary branded site? Invisible payments, and you heard earlier on how we buy and pay of many of these critical changes is undergoing transformative change. And if you look at the RBA data just in the last 12 months on how there's been changes in payment, we've seen cash collapse. We've seen checks declining, credit card, the old credit card model peak and starting to decline. We're seeing more use of debit and new forms of payment. Clearly, Wave and Pass, many things that CommBank have led for retailers, but also big shifts in buy now, pay later and digital wallets. We've seen online it move from 8 clicks to 1, and then in store, we're seeing the payment experience locally and led by Amazon Go in many other markets is actually, their argument is forget about improving the shopping experience, just remove critical stages of friction, including payments. So the future of payments will be cashless, it will be cardless, debit is strengthening, the credit card model is under pressure, mobile wallets will explode, it will merge with loyalty, and there are significant investments required to drive this change. Another critical shift, and where technology can play a big role, is around driving significant shifts around lightning fulfillment. What we know is customers want options. They want fast, free, branded, and more sustainable supply chains and fulfillment. We know their expectations is to be delivered within 2 days. But for Australian retail, that is a minority of retailers can guarantee that commitment. They want to check free shipping thresholds. They expect it to be free, and they want it early in the payment experience, and they want to know, give us estimates like we see on Amazon and many of the leading e-commerce is when I can expect this. And it has huge impacts in how we structure our warehousing. Warehousing is a place where we store our mistakes, and we see customers want variety. That's where major warehousing hubs will solve, but they want speed, and that speed can only be delivered by spokes closest to the customer. And we know that retailers are focused on inventory management, packing, returns management, replenishment, and order customization. So fulfillment is about building the capability, looking where you can play, where third parties play a role, automating inventory management, streamlining return processes, and ensuring that you have local spokes to be able to deliver that speed. And finally, briefly, personalization, creating that direct personalized relationship. We know only a few years ago, Amazon quoted that 30% of their retail business is driven by personalized recommendations based upon prior search, prior intent, and prior purchase behavior. We know that the Prime members, probably the largest membership program in the world, now that value of those members is worth more than double that of a non-member in an average year. And we know that the primary challenges for retail, again, these are problems to solve, is the inability to track targeted customers through the entire journey, attributing marketing performance of individual programs and creating a single view of their customer. So retailers need to have a data foundation, focus on design, focus on decisioning, and then the distribution, and having a stack to enable personalization. So what? I've covered a lot of ground really quickly. So we have these 8 shifts that all have problems to solve to create a fantastic retail ecosystem that are your challenges. But we know that there are 5 critical enduring truths. Customers want me or retailers to know me, value me, help me get what I want, make it easy, protect me, and this is the area of security, and fix my issues fast and once. So how does that work finally on our shopper experience? On wider discovery, social, live, and entertaining collapsing funnels, faster, more predictive search to help me get what I want. Marketplaces play a role. We're seeing more evidence around solutions playing a bigger role over brand search. Payments, it's about it going away, cashless, touchless, cardless, debit, digital wallets, digital currencies, potential in the future, from multiple clicks to zero and for walking out. We've talked about lightning fulfillments, fast, free, branded, sustainable, automated options, seamless support, easy returns, refunds, ubiquitous service, referrals, reviews, and recommendation. And finally, giving me a direct, personalized relation. You know me, you value me with relevance, membership, and potentially subscriptions. These are the sources. This is the link. I am there to help. This is a really important initiative to build a powerful, exciting retail ecosystem that shows growth and mutual value for all. Thank you.
John, thank you so much for that. I do appreciate the volume of content there that you've gone through in 15 minutes. We might have to see if we can loop you into our community day so we can dive deep on some of those. We've had a question come through regarding will you share the slides? That link is there now. Thanks for sharing that, John. We'll also send that in the follow-up email to today's event. Now, thank you. I would like to just let everyone know we have hit 9 o'clock. We're happy to stay on and answer any questions that you have regarding Xccelerate. I can see there are some questions coming through now. I'll just see if I can get the view on screen of the slides. What we'll be doing is for audience participants, if you have to drop off now, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or reach out to the X15 team. You'll be able to find Xccelerate details on the X15 Ventures website. We do have office hours booked for tomorrow and Thursday. So that link is in the chat currently. And if you do want to have a look at that link as well in relation to applications, feel free to submit your application. It's very straightforward. We want to know predominantly about the founding team. Who are you and why are you the ones to solve the problem that you're solving? We want to know about the customers you're focused on, and then finally, what's your proposed solution? We're looking for experienced founders in their areas of expertise or startups that are starting to gain early traction. But if you just have an idea at this stage, Xccelerate might be the right place for you. I'll pause there and we will go into questions. If you do have questions, audience, please add those to the Slido window. Should be available to you. And we will now open up to our panelists. We'll be taking questions on anything to do with retail. While we have John and Omaya and Ish available. John, just confirming you're right for another couple of minutes. Thank you, thank you. So audience, please feel free to send those retail questions through. While those come through, Ish, I'd like to ask 2 questions that have come in. One is X15 just looking for fintechs or is it broader? And could you touch on the safe note that's on offer while we wait for those questions? Over to you, Ish.
Thanks, Zach. So X15 is looking for fintechs, but not just fintechs. Conscious that particularly in the retail and e-commerce space, as John spoke about, there are a number of different pain points across the retail journey. So, as long as there is a relevance back to, CommBank customers or retail customers or retailers, it's definitely something that we'd be interested in. And on the safe note, so Safe Note Simple Agreement for Future Equity. We've got a very vanilla structure for that. Upon winning, the recipient will get the $150,000 and will have a right to convert that to equity at your next raise at a post-money valuation of $1.5 million.
Thanks, Ish. And just confirming as well, is the Xccelerate program open to startups overseas?
We are looking for Australian-based companies at the moment and Australian-based entrepreneurs.
And lastly, one more for you, Ish. If a venture starts working with X15, are they locked into CBA or X15, or can they work with other banks and other organizations?
We'd hope that the experience working with X15 means that they would love to work with X15 exclusively, but we have a broader vision with X15 around sort of how we can support these businesses to scale more broadly. And if that means that they need to scale outside of the bank, that's definitely something that we're open to. We don't have anything in terms of restricting or exclusivity in our terms.
Thank you for that. John, I have a question that I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind having a crack at answering. What have you seen in relation to ventures being built in Australia, but then expanding overseas? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, we've seen some too few, it's fair to say. And this is why initiatives like this are so critical in building a retail tech ecosystem. The obvious examples, and I'm involved in one of them, which is the likes of Afterpay and Zip, that have built a big franchise in Australia and have moved globally. So Zip I've been involved in for 5.5 years, from a fledgling company of I think under 20 people to now almost 1,000, and an ASX 100 company. So they're very few. There needs to be more, and we've not been great at building payment and retail tech examples, but there are a few, and that's why I think this is such an important initiative.
Thanks for addressing that. I have one for Amaya. Is the retail experience defined by the payments, or do you have any thoughts on that and the considerations we should think about for our customers as well?
Thanks, Zach. I think John spoke about payments and payments becoming invisible. I do agree payments are becoming invisible, but at the same time, I think payments also needs to be fit for consumer and the target market. And in some cases, you probably don't want the payment as invisible completely. In particular, if you're buying luxury goods and it's a big investment, you may want to create a pause in that shopping experience so a consumer can really think about the purchase, and the design of that pause and where you put your payment method and payment experience should be really considerate of the consumer in line with that good. So it's fitting the payment experience with the customer and the product that you're selling. I think also the friction, and that's where the invisible point that John's talking about, it takes such a big effort to get the consumer into your e-com store, and that decision-making process and that shopping experience is a big investment. So you don't want the transaction to fail and feed your abandonment rate because the payment method's not there or the payment experience is clunky. So how much friction you put in into that experience is a really important consideration in the design of that customer journey. An invisible payment obviously solves for the abandoned cart issue. That is a really big issue for merchants. I don't know that frictionless is in the best interest of consumers, just to be a little bit challenging to John's point. I think it benefits merchants. It might not always benefit consumer because there's the regret and guilt. I have a lot of guilt all the time. I've got parcels arriving at my front door. My husband even knows the courier's name by first name now. So, there's also a responsibility to make sure that it's not completely frictionless, that maybe sometimes a little bit of friction is okay. So definitely payments does influence the retail experience. Absolutely it does.
Thanks for that, Amaya. And I think I'll hand over to John for one last question in relation to the retail experience. John, you know, a couple of years ago, you said that customers will want a seamless experience across any channel at any time, anywhere. You said that a few years ago. What has happened since you made those comments, and what's still missing in the retail space that startups in particular are well positioned to solve for today and moving forward?
Yeah, Zach, I guess the context of that quote many years ago was that many retailers were structuring their business along online. Here's the online team, here's the store team, and they were run almost as separate businesses. And you know, I've never liked the idea of, you know, the word we evolved to omni-channel, and in my mind, it's just total retail. It's retail at any moment, at any channel, at any time, and I want to be able to buy in any channel, return in any channel. So it needs to be seamless, and it really is. How do we organize? How do we incentivize? How do we build the technology stack of the retailer? Helps us solve problems for customers across all channels, wherever they may be. So yeah, that was a time that customers or retailers were looking at specific channels, and there was friction for consumers as a result. That's changing, but it's not where it needs to be for many incumbent bricks and mortar stores that are now, over the last 5 to 8 years, have been moving into e-commerce. In fact, most retailers, the most progressive retailers, even though they come from a store background, have said that e-commerce is now going to be the core of our business, and stores are where physical experience exists. So that was the context of that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. For our retail presenters, thank you, Amaya and John. Rochelle had to drop off early. We thank you so much for your time today, and thanks to the audience for putting those questions to our panelists. We from X15 will stay on for a few more minutes to answer these questions that come through. I've got one here. Is Xccelerate21 open to startups who will have both global and local customers? As long as you are based in Australia and you do have an Australian customer, that is absolutely an option. I think this is something that office hours might help us to answer. So if whoever asks that question, feel free to book in 15 minutes with myself on Wednesday or Thursday. We have another question. Do startups in hospitality or restaurants qualify? Or is it only open to retail and e-commerce? Ish, would you like to answer that question?
We are looking more closely at retail and e-commerce, but we also have a general front door that is open to X15. So if you don't think that it's the right fit for Xccelerate, we definitely do have other methods for engaging with startups in hospitality. And you know, the hospitality is an area of interest for us, given our acquisition of Doshi.
Thanks, Ish. And that front door is viewable on the X15 website. We have one more question. Sorry, how many startups will be invited at the start of the accelerator? So, talking to the process, we will be inviting up to 8 startups to the community day. So that will be a 100% virtual event, and then from those 8. Select startups will be invited to the pitch event, which at this point we would like to hold in person, but we will see what happens in the next few weeks, and we'll keep everybody updated on that. I think that answers the other question around how many are we hosting for this program. Bear with me. There we go. I think we've answered that. Thank you, everyone. What I'll do now, Morgan, if you can please pull up the final slide for everybody. We'll wrap up in the next minute or two. Morgan, if you can get the slide with our applications, there it is there. Thank you. So if you would like to learn more about Xccelerate, please have a look there. We also have links to our office hours. And I have 1 or 2 more questions coming through, so I will answer those now. please feel free to use those links to learn more, book office hours, or to apply online. In relation to how long the program is, it is a 2-day commitment in total, with some application questions and an interview, video conference interview with X15. So the community day will be a whole day, 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. That will include masterclasses, mentoring opportunities, so the opportunity to pitch to folks like John and Amaya, and then the pitch day. So that will be a 1-day event as well. For the pitch day, as I mentioned previously, that will be potentially in person for those folks who are based interstate. We will be looking at providing flights for you to come in for the day. So we've factored that in as well. In relation to the question, CBA looking at later stage ventures targeting retail, Ish, would you like to answer that one? Is CBA looking at later stage ventures?
So yes, we are. For the Xccelerate program specifically, we're looking for startups and founders at pre-seed or seed stage. We do look at ventures sort of up to pre-series B if you're post that. We do have a broader team within CBA that evaluates potential partnerships and investments. So X15 is absolutely the right front door to come to, and we'll figure out if it's us or if it's somewhere else in the bank to evaluate your idea.
Thanks, Ish. Will we be having any more of these sessions? The next session for us will be the community day. But if you do have more questions, I propose going to the office hours link where we can answer any particular questions that you might have. The community day, in the spirit of today and in the community day, I want you to think about, we had a number of retail panelists from outside and inside the bank in X15. The community day is much more of what you've been able to see today. And we do get the opportunity to dive much deeper on many of the topics. I'm sure John could have talked for many hours on his area of expertise. And in the community day, we make sure that it's an engaging program where you can ask direct questions of those mentors and those subject matter experts. All right. Thank you, everybody. I do appreciate we have gone over time. For those who stayed on the line, we do appreciate that. And we hope you've enjoyed the session this morning. We will be sending out an email with links to applications and to John's slides as well. On that, I will close. Thank you to all our panelists and the X15 team, Stone and Chalk, for helping us put this all together. We really appreciate that. And very much looking forward to seeing all the applications that come through for Xccelerate21 Retail Reimagined. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.